It was in 1970 that efforts to classify tornadoes and better understand the tornado hazard began to make genuine progress. After studying the deaths and damage at Lubbock, Texas, Professor Fujita of the University of Chicago introduced the concept called the Fujita Scale of Tornado Intensity. Since 1971, every officially documented tornado has been given a Fujita scale rating from 0 to 5. The F-scale ratings are not based on the appearance of the tornado itself, no matter how spectacular, but the rating is based on the intensity of the damage inflicted by the tornado. The F-scale rating is not based on the total dollar damage during the tornado, but is based on the single most intense example of damage that was inflicted along the tornado's path. Finding that single most intense example is not always easy amidst the rubble of an entire community. Professor Fujita also calculated a range of wind speed values for each category. These are the estimated wind speeds needed to produce the 6 levels of damage. More than half of all tornadoes are in the F0 and F1 categories and are called weak tornadoes. A tornado that does no damage or dips down briefly and breaks a few tree branches is rated at F0. A tornado which damages the siding and partially unroofs a frame home would be rated at F1. Mobile homes that are flipped over and destroyed by a tornado are usually considered as examples of F1 damage. F1 tornadoes can be very dangerous. These have caused deaths under falling chimneys, under falling trees, and especially in overturned trailers. As long as the tornado did not intensify, the greatest danger at this Minnesota lake was probably from falling trees at the lakefront cottage. Getting into a closet might have been the safest thing to do.
So, you can see it. It is totally incredible.
It is so sweet.
See if I get a little more. It's coming up behind us.
Destruction of rural outbuildings is generally considered as F1 damage, although F2 ratings are awarded when a well-built barn is destroyed. The type of tornado called a land spout may seem at times like an overgrown F1 dust devil, but they have produced near F3 damage in Denver, Colorado, and should be considered as dangerous. If the tornado, at its worst, rips the roof from a home or other frame building, all weaker damage is ignored and the tornado is rated at F2. If a tornado was on the ground for 40 miles and unroofed only a single home, the entire 40-mile track is given an F2 rating. For mobile homes, the transition from F1 damage to F2 damage has not and probably never can be defined. Some meteorologists consider the complete devastation of a mobile home to be an example of F2 damage. Others always rate mobile home damage at F1. There is no well-defined standard. A tornado with winds that can rip the roof from a frame home will completely disintegrate a mobile home. Tornadoes stronger than F2 will leave a mobile home park unrecognizable.
Oh, I hope she's in her basement. Oh my God.
If a tornado rips away the roof and exterior walls of just one well-constructed home, all lesser damage is ignored and the tornado is rated at F3. F3 tornadoes can also throw vehicles long distances, but there is no agreed-upon standard that numerically links the distance traveled with the estimated wind speed. If at least one well-constructed home is left as a mass of debris without any standing walls, then all lesser damage is ignored and the tornado is rated at F4. If at least one well-constructed home is completely swept away, leaving a bare foundation, then the highest rating, F5, would be applied. Since both the F4 and F5 ratings involve homes that no longer exist, choosing whether an F4 or F5 rating is appropriate is very difficult. Tree damage presents a unique challenge to the F-scale rating system. Each tornado and each tree species are unique. Even adjacent trees grow in a slightly unique environment. There is no defined standard for rating tree damage, only subjective judgments in individual cases. We know that straight winds in the F1 range can devastate an entire forest. We know that F1 winds can uproot large trees. Yet some trees remain standing, stripped of bark and branches, even in F4 winds. Since more trees than buildings are hit by tornadoes each year, an F-scale standard for tree damage might be a very useful tool, if one is ever developed. There are many other types of damage in which an F-scale rating is applied only on the basis of a subjective judgment or a detailed engineering study. There are no standards for such things as damage to schools, churches, multi-story apartment buildings, and electrical transmission towers. There is no F-scale standard for the destruction of large downtown brick buildings which collapse rather than get blown away. Trying to use the Fujita scale to rate historically important tornadoes is difficult, especially when the tornadoes hit in a downtown area. 203 people died here at Gainesville, Georgia in 1936. Most of the deaths occurred downtown, where large brick buildings collapsed. There are other limitations to the rating of tornadoes using the Fujita scale. The Seymour, Texas tornado in 1979 is an ideal example of one of them. This tornado, like many on the Western Plains, did not strike anything that revealed the true force of its winds. Because it hit almost nothing, its destructive potential is underrated. The Seymour tornado may very well have leveled homes to the ground had it passed through a town, but it struck only trees and telephone poles, which is minimal F2 at best. This F1 tornado near Warren, Montana, may have been in a similar category.
Yeah, to turn this into the news.
To overcome the tendency to underrate tornadoes on the Great Plains, it has been suggested that tornadoes be given a rating based on their appearance rather than their actual damage. However, this would be very difficult to do with any consistency. And consistency is all important if the ratings are to be of any scientific use. Perhaps a tornado should have two ratings, one for the actual damage and a second rating based on appearance.
We better be ready to get for the basement. No, this one ain't going down.
Training a nation of spotters to make visual estimates would be very difficult. Here, a massive, violent tornado near North Platte, Nebraska, has no condensation funnel. Here, what appears to be a rather weak tornado has multiple vortices.
It's a little tornado. Looks like it's going back that way.
The thin rope stage of a tornado may be capable of only F1 damage.
Damn this goddamn camera. Look at that tornado.
Or may, as at Union City, be capable of destroying a home. The debris from the home can be seen in the air near the rope funnel. Other tornadoes are completely hidden behind dust. It may be impossible to train someone to make visual judgments without years of chasing and surveying experience. Subjective judgment will always be needed in the F-scale rating system, and there will always be disagreements. Homes were leveled at Dallas, but they were not frame homes and not well attached to a foundation. Buildings were swept away here in Georgia, but they were not well-constructed homes. And there are still other complications. All of these tornadoes near Ash Valley and Great Bend, Kansas, were rated at F0 or F1. They may have all deserved those ratings, but we know through photogrammetry that hundreds of feet above ground level, this tornado is rotating at over 158 miles per hour. However, that doesn't mean it should be rated at F3. The F-scale is a human risk analysis tool, and therefore applies only where people operate, just above ground level. In recent years, Professor Bluestein and his portable Doppler radar have added a new complexity to the Fujita scale rating system. This tornado near Moreland, Oklahoma, did minimal F3 damage, but portable Doppler radar detected winds in the F4 range, somewhere in the funnel. The tornado would deserve an F4 rating if we could be sure those winds were near ground level. Despite its drawbacks and weaknesses, the Fujita scale has been among the most useful conceptual tools ever created for the study of severe storms. It has revolutionized tornado climatology, and there seems to be no alternative. The inability to perfect a rating system for tornado damage and wind speeds may forever prevent us from solving the puzzle of tornado risk.